Darwin Shurig, CEO and founder of Shurig Solutions. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate you having me on.
So it's great to see you, and we're going to be connected in March in Dana Point. Wanted to spend some time with you this morning and just get caught up. The first thing I wanted to ask you about is your background. You have a really interesting background. You come from industry. You worked for some big strategics, and now you're in the executive search and the talent business. How did that happen?
I don't know that we have enough time, but it definitely wasn't one of those scenarios where, I thought I would be doing this someday. If 10 years ago, you and I would have known each other and you just said, hey, I think you're going to own a recruiting firm or be a recruiter, I probably would have hurt myself laughing at you. So there were some situations in the industry. McKesson bought a company I was with, and then after $2.5 billion business units integrated, they made some changes to those of us that were acquired. So I had an opportunity to look at some different things. I had a good friend that introduced me to the MRI network and the opportunity. And after I looked at it, I had some opportunities to continue in industry, and I just got really excited about maybe bringing some innovative ideas and some thoughts to the industry that might change the candidate experience and maybe tell the story a little bit differently in terms of how you protect a company's value prop. And so 7.5 years later, here we are.
That's awesome. Tell me, for those that don't know Shurig Solutions, get us current. I know you've had a really big year. Congratulations on that. But
thank you.
Just high level, what are you guys? What's all about? What are you guys all about? What's different about Shurig Solutions?
No, I think that's a really important question, and I think whether it's us as a company or the innovators and the companies that are coming through LSI, understanding your why and how that ties into your mission statement is vitally important. And so, our focus is to solve the biggest challenges for regulatory, quality, engineering, and commercial roles for medical device. And then we also do some work in the pharma industry. What differentiates us is that it's not about finding talent in this day and age. If that's the conversation, I think that's a completely different conversation. It's about identifying the best talent and attracting it efficiently to your value prop. And then additionally, who do you partner with? How do they protect your value prop in the marketplace? Companies spend millions and millions of dollars to create an identity, to create a value prop in the marketplace. And then sometimes they partner with external firms or multiple firms, and they really have no idea how they interact with the talent in the marketplace, how they protect their value prop, and what that looks like. I think that is a huge thing to consider and understand. So what differentiates us is that we utilize some really unique marketing tools and processes that not only protect our partners' value prop in the marketplace, but helps attract the right talent efficiently in the process. And we have the data and the analytics to back that. Secondly, because of those processes, how we partner and the upfront work we put into the marketplace, our offer acceptance rate has averaged 93% for 7.5 years. So at the end of the day, making sure that we understand what the client's needs are, what they need the person to do in that position, and that person's going to fit their culture so that we can attract the right talent, mitigate the cost of a mishire, and that's a positive experience for everybody and not wasting anybody's time. And so I think that's really, hopefully in a nutshell, one of the biggest differentiators about us, as well as the fact that we're a part of the ecosystem. We're investing in the ecosystem and supporting the great work that you're doing at LSI and some of the other conferences that we sponsor.
That's great. I want to come back to that point about your organization investing in the ecosystem. But before we go there, one of the themes that I've seen at our meetings, we talk a lot about technology, of course, talk a lot about markets. We talk a ton about raising capital, right? We got to raise capital so we can do all these things. And we also talk a lot about people and management teams and that human capital. It feels to me like just in the last couple of years, we're talking more about the people than ever. Is that a real trend? Is it just something that I'm hearing, or do you see an emphasis on the people?
Certainly, as somebody that's been doing this for seven and a half years, and you talked about our success. We've doubled in revenue 2 out of the last 3 years. We're scaling, a lot of positive outcomes. I think that certainly the pandemic, obviously huge disruption, a lot of negatives at the same time, a lot of positives coming from that disruption, and how to think, how to look at things a little bit differently. Whether that's, you look at wearables monitoring, you look at what's going on with clinical trials and the opportunity to create efficiencies and the remote aspect. There's a lot of positive coming through that disruption. I think that people are certainly thinking about quality of life, work-life balance, what they're willing to do for their career at the potential expense of their family life. I think that lens and how people look at the decisions they make is changing. And my gut would be relevant to how people, the focus moving back to people. I'm a big proponent of the book, The Talent War. I think the authors did an incredible job in putting that together. But I think in terms of looking at talent, a lot of people say they're open to talent or crossover talent, but then they're not. I'm open to talent as long as it checks off every single, 11 out of 10 boxes, right? So understanding what you need the person to do in the position, but more importantly, you actually have to attract people. You have to attract your culture. And if you don't understand that, then again, that's a different conversation. But what if somebody comes to your company, especially these companies, incredible ideas and innovation, but then how are they going to scale? What's their plan to do that? Do they have the right leadership? Conceptually, because when somebody asked me about joining a startup, I'm like, you really need to understand their leadership, what their plan of execution is, because you don't want to go join one that's going to get over their skis because they don't have a good plan in place. But if they're going to interview with you, and how the focus is changing, and we're certainly trying to change the candidate experience in a positive way for the company we partner with, but they should really be able to understand from the investment of their time of exploring that company who they're going to become through the process. It obviously doesn't hurt that a lot of the areas that we're in, there's not near enough talent, and it's a candidate-driven market for sure right now.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it's always fascinating to me. I watch the presentations at the event, and there's a slide on the market and the problem and the opportunity and the fundraising status. And there's usually a slide, and sometimes at the beginning and sometimes at the end, and sometimes both, where it talks about the team. And there's a big emphasis on team, and there's often spots that are open. And I know that there's a huge appetite right now for the right people. You see a lot of companies that struggle because they just don't have the right team, and that's the gap that you fill and the services that you bring to the table. You mentioned a minute ago investing in the ecosystem. And first, I want to thank you because your organization has officially come on board as a sponsor for LSI Dana Point this year, for which we are very grateful for. We're looking forward to working with you. But I have to ask you, you've attended every one of our meetings, and now you're stepping up. You're making that investment. Why? Why are you doing that?
I think that's a great question. So I'm going to answer that twofold. I had the honor and the privilege to be invited to sort of audition for Pinnacle Society, which is, there's a whole lot of multiple metrics that you have to be able to meet in excellent success, billings, to even be considered. And I had the honor of being invited in and to be a part of the Pinnacle Society. And a big part of that process is, what do you bring to the table? What are your experiences, and what's your willingness to share, unselfishly, your experiences to the group? What do you bring to that ecosystem? And I think, first of all, what you've done is just extraordinary. And I know, my mom got to come to the London one, and she was just I mean, just how much joy it gave me, how excited my mom was just being around and getting to learn all of the incredible technology. A scenario where you bring the top innovators, investors, consultants and services, and people that are heavily invested in the ecosystem and bringing value. The intellectual capital is just incredible. The opportunity to learn, think maybe a little bit differently. What a great forum. And so initially it's, hey, we want to be there. I want to be there. I want to learn through that. I think every single conference or anything you invest your time in, the number one priority is, how do you learn? How do you yourself mentally grow from it? Secondly, for us is, how do we bring content back to our following that is interesting to them and helps them potentially in terms of where they want to take their career or maybe a challenge that they have. And then thirdly, hopefully making contacts and planting seeds in a way that is done the right way, that you're planting seeds so that maybe you might be able to bring value sometime down the road. And if they need a solution right now, great. But you do it in a way that you're a part of the ecosystem and you're not trying to push anything on anybody. And so with that thought in mind, and as we've continued to grow as a company, and I love what you're doing, we want to be a part of the ecosystem that gives. Mm-hmm. And there are people that are part of different industries or ecosystems that are just trying to take. And I think that it doesn't take very long to clearly see who's giving and who's just taking. And so we certainly want to be a part of the industry that supports innovation, that supports opportunity. And I think it's an exciting time where medtech's going. The innovation and the opportunity to bring positive products to patient populations is as exciting, as far as I'm concerned, as my adult life. So hopefully that kind of answers it, but we want to be a part of it, and we want to support what you're doing and what the companies are doing in any way that we can.
I love it. Thank you, Darwin. And that's the idea that you want to give back to this great industry we work in, and you're in it for the long term, says a lot about you and your organization, your leadership. So we're really excited to be partnered up with you, and hopefully we can do this well into the future.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that as well, Scott.
Yeah, we've got a big announcement coming up this week, maybe next week, about where we'll be in Europe, but we'll save that for later.
I can't wait. We will be there.
It was a pleasure to have your mom at the event, and actually, speaking of that, like family and friends and just our industry in general, it's really interesting. I had a call just this morning with a friend from a VC friend, and he was sharing with me an event that he went to, and there was discussion with an ex-Wall Street kind of finance person who then went to work with a major strategic. And the question was asked of this ex-finance person, now an operator, what's one of the most surprising things you've learned now that you're on the inside? And his answer was, he was surprised to find out how much our industry really cares about changing people's lives. And that wasn't said in a negative way. It was said in a way like a very hopeful, a very positive way. And one of the things I love about our meetings and love about organizations like yours is that, yes, we're all doing business. Yes, we want to make money, but we get to, and we want to do good along the way. And so that's really something that it gets me up in the morning, and I know it does for you as well. So yeah. Speaking of people, okay, any cool connections you've made at the event that were a surprise to you, or any special connections you made outside of your core business that you can share with us?
There's been so many really cool interactions, just blessings of getting to meet incredible people, just getting to sit in the presentations alone and understand what's coming and the innovation and what goes into it has been great. So there's definitely some particular people that. So I'll tell you one that you know, my clinical background is a respiratory therapist. So obviously ventilation and aspects of respiratory care are, you know, I have a soft spot for that and a curiosity and an interest there. So Clay Nolan, who's the CEO, the founder, the innovator of Collabs Medical, I believe is the name of it. But I got the opportunity to meet him 2 conferences ago and his product. And, you know, he's early stage, but what a great innovation. His background, you know, as an EMT, and I just really enjoyed his presentation. And then I got the opportunity to meet him. I was like, hey, like, can I see your product? Can I? And he was like, yeah. So I got to go back and, you know, play with it, and he's showing me, and we were probably like, people at the other table were like, these guys are like geeking out over, but what a neat story. And you talked about what you were talking about earlier, like his daughters, his family, his wife was there. But, you know, I'm not, Clay and I, there's no, you know, we're not working with him per se or anything, but what a cool story. And the benefit to the, to those patient populations, and the problem that solves is exactly what we were talking about earlier about why LSI brings so much value. And to your point, look at his background, my background, and anybody that's there. I find a lot of the CEOs, a lot of times the presenters are the, you know, you look at Andy McDade from Opum, he's the innovator. Right? That's how the idea came from. He became the CEO. And so I think that most people have somebody in their family that was affected, or they, you know, you look at oncology, cancer, right? Almost everybody knows somebody that's affected there. And so most people, yeah, to your point, they're trying to build a business, they're trying to invest money, they're trying to do something specifically, but they care about people. And they care about bringing positive products to patient populations. So there's certainly a lot of others that, in terms of, you know, my dad, we lost him this year with Parkinson's. So some of the really neat products for seizures, telehealth. I have a big soft spot for wound care with my background, but anything with Parkinson's and those kind of things. There's so many amazing people there. So hopefully I don't get in trouble for just pointing out Clay, but that was a really cool experience.
I think that's great, and I agree with you. Collabs is a really, really interesting company, and Clay is indeed a very strong leader out there. I think they have a bright future.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I know that I did a little diligence on you. I know you're a big traveler. I think you have a trip coming up. Is there anything in your, just kind of in your world travels, in your visits to other countries around the world, that has impacted how you view our business? I know we talk a lot recently about access to healthcare and democratization of healthcare. That's a big theme right now. You're out there. What do you see? Has it changed your thinking on things?
I do love to travel. You know, my dad was sort of a wanderlust, I think, for I don't know if that's the best word, but that's kind of what I think about my dad. My dad loved to see the beauty of the world. He liked to experience things. I love to experience other cultures, how people live, foods, just absolutely love it. So we had the opportunity to go to Africa in the fall, and that was because we hit our business goal last year. So that's been a bucket list of mine, a dream of mine. So we got to spend almost 2 weeks in Tanzania on safari. You know, that experience, just absolutely incredible. The spirit of the people in Tanzania, how joyful and just wonderful people. So that was really cool. But specific to your question, you look at medtech, the way medtech's growing. But within medtech, you have certain micro cosms, robotic surgical platforms, wearables, monitoring, artificial intelligence. Medtech's growing 6.5%, 7%, depending on what you read. Those areas are growing 30% plus, right? So let's just take robotic surgical platforms. And you and I talked about this earlier. There's 26, 28 companies right now trying to develop the platform for soft tissue. I was at Sage's Surgical Conference in 2021. And at that conference, they talked about less than 5% of the people on the planet that had a surgery had it on a robotic platform. And I thought that can't be right? You think about the money that's being invested there, the technology, the value that can bring people relative to efficiency and outcomes. But to me, so the point of answering your question is thinking about countries that don't have the same resources, they don't have the same capital, and therefore their people don't have the same access to care. And in this case, relative to surgical outcomes, that could be the difference between mortality or being maimed, or the outcome is completely different. So when you think about what this format that you brought to the table and what's happening, whether it's telehealth, whether it's wearables, robotics, the value to humanity, the ability to get access, regardless of where you're from, who you are, right, indiscriminately, to bring value to people and better access to healthcare, and more positive clinical outcomes because of the product. I think that, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it certainly should tie in relevant to cultures and the world. People are different based on their experiences, but there's a lot more that brings us together and that we value than divides us, I believe.
I couldn't agree with you more. I believe it's the most exciting time that I've ever been a part of this industry. And largely for that reason that you just described, we're finally in a place where we can get access to these technologies and healthcare to more people around the world. A lot of work to do, but it really feels like we're turning a corner. And I think the next several years are going to be really exciting as well.
I agree.
As long as we can place really talented people in the right company. So you got a lot of work ahead of you as well. And okay, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. For the first time attendee, somebody that's going to be at their first LSI event, let's give them some advice. You're an alumni, you're a veteran. I see you at every event. It's like I can't turn a corner without seeing you networking with someone. I see you in one-on-one meetings. Then I see you sitting in a session watching a presentation, and I see you at a lunch networking with people and breaking bread. And this year we're going to see you up on the stage doing a little moderating some sessions for us. So if you're a first-time person, that's a lot to think about. What's the right strategy? Is it one-on-one meetings and sessions? Is it all of the above? Do you wing it? Do you have a strategy, or do you just go into these things with a blank sheet of paper? Because I know I'm kind of riding you here, but I sincerely see you all over the place. It's like, are there two Darwins out there? Like, what's your strategy for these events?
Could you imagine how bad that would be for everybody if there was a second one? But that's a great question, and I think it's a very important question for somebody new to ask themselves that goes there. I don't know any relationships that last very long that aren't mutually beneficial. And as I look at, I don't want to be a vendor. I don't want to be transactional. So how I look at things, how I plan things out is very from a place, hopefully, of proactivity and strategy. And so I think that when you look at LSI, really most conferences, but certainly LSI, if you're an innovator, they're presenting, if you're there to invest money, you got a pretty specific agenda, right? You have a specific reason that you're there for. And if you're if you're in my seat, or you're a consultant, or you provide services, I think you have to go into it being respectful of what the stakeholders are there for. And from that standpoint, I go into it absolutely with the strategy. I want to know who's speaking, when. I want to know what the panel conferences are. I want to get as much ROI from the information and the education of the event as possible to make my conversations more fruitful, more valuable to the people that I interact with, number one. Secondly, at this point, we have, may not be a lot to some, maybe a lot to others, but we have about 14,000 people following us in terms of our social media platform. Our focus is to bring value to others relevant to educational content, industry insights, opportunities, et cetera. So we want to bring that information back so that the people that weren't there understand the cool technology that's coming. The opportunities for some of these companies. There's opportunities to invest differently than ever before. You and I were talking about that earlier, right? That's pretty exciting to be able to have access from that standpoint. So I think you have to go into it with a strategy, but you have to go into it with a thought process and a feeling of what you bring, what you can bring to somebody. And you don't want to be in somebody's face. You got to kind of understand where they're coming from, and you're planting seeds. And then I think if you take that approach and that attitude, opportunities will pop up. And the more you're there, if you're just going to go one time, just save your money. That's what I would say. But if you believe in what the medtech industry is doing, what the platform you put together, the opportunity to share thoughts, share experiences, solve problems in general, and you want to learn from that, and you want to invest in it and try to bring value to it, then you're planting seeds. And through the course of time of multiple conferences, you'll get incredible ROI out of it in a multitude of areas.
That's tremendous. Well, we could go on and on here, but I want to thank you again, Darwin, for giving back to this great industry that we work in, and for your long-term commitment to that industry and to the LSI platform. We can't hold these meetings without the support of industry veterans like yourself. You guys play such an important role, and I want to thank you for being a part of it. Look forward to seeing you. If your mom's up for it, bring her out to Dana Point. We'd love to have her. And
she's already asking me. She said, "Hey, where are they going to be? Where's it going to be in Europe? And when's the U.S. one?" I said, "Oh, Mom, I'm sure you've got. We'll get as soon as we find out where it's going to be. You can go if you want to go, Mom. No problem." So you're absolutely welcome. I greatly appreciate your kindness. You have been very willing to give your insights when you and I first connected a couple of years ago. I love what you're doing. I'm very grateful and excited to be a part of it. And we plan to continue each year upping our investment and our support of what you're doing. So you're very welcome, and thank you in return.
Thank you, Darwin. I'm fortunate I have a good team. We'll tie it back to the original theme here. Great people, right? I got great people here at LSI, great customers and support from industry veterans like yourself. So thank you. Can't wait to see you and appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Scott.